Hi all, I'm Cullen Haynes and welcome to Live with Cullen Haynes, Ledger Legends, episode number 7, if I'm not mistaken. Coming to you live, it is 5 p.m. here in Sydney, Australian Eastern Delta Daylight Time. And my next guest is an absolute powerhouse, 15 years in the profession, partner and CA at Nexia here in Sydney. So without further ado, could you please make very welcome Mr. Darren Chinnappa. I'm adding you now. Hey, Darren, how are you, sir?
Hey, Colin. Not too bad. And yeah, thanks for having me on here.
Of course.
How are you going?
Of course. It's going very well, my friend. It's going well. We obviously, just to give context, thank you for anyone tuning in live and obviously listening on the podcast. It's the 25th of September, Wednesday. So we just had the RBA decision yesterday. So rates are on hold. So the market is not shocked, but we're just dealing with the reality of that situation, my friend, here in LHL and CA home loans land.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably expected that decision at this point, with how inflation has still been a little bit sticky, at least here in Australia. But I think it's not too far off the turn in interest rates, as we usually follow the US, usually a couple of steps behind, but we eventually get there.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point. And love to know what is happening in your circle of influence at the moment. Tell us a little bit about what's happening on your side.
Yeah, so I guess in the super and tax world, there's constant change, and so that keeps me relevant to some regard.
Yes.
At the moment, yeah. So I guess a lot of what I do is help people navigate the complexities that come with their financial affairs, so that they can focus on all the other more interesting aspects of their life. So with the extent of change that's experienced in that in the space that I'm in, just having a plan and that comfort or security is what people look for, and is what I'm there to help people get.
No, I think it's great work at what you're doing, and I've got the title down below, obviously being super at your super. What does that mean for you in terms of you live and breathe it every day? Would love to know in a nutshell what that means for you.
I think it's probably about taking control of your financial future, which super forms a big part of. So it's about having that clarity and planning, so that you don't come up with any rude surprises along the way. So a lot of that is just mapping it out and getting people to understand or take control of their future by, sometimes it's sacrificing a little bit today in terms of setting up that the retirement lifestyle that they want. And a lot of it comes from, the power of compound interest and savings across a long period of time in the super world, which is in a nice concessional tax base.
Absolutely. I'm endeared by what you're saying about the power of compound interest. My father bought me a copy of The Richest Man in Babylon. I think it should be called The Richest Person in Babylon in the 21st Century by George S. Clason. And in that, it talks about, the power of 10%. You invest that, and, with an interest rate, I think it was 10 or 15% back in the day. That's the power, right? So obviously that's exactly what you're talking about with compounding, I'm guessing, that logic.
Yeah, and it's amazing what how powerful it is, and people know about it, but often don't realize the extent when you're compounding across a few decades. And then I think that's where when we do talk about strategies, we like to actually show it to them, and in the form of weather projections and such, and when they can see how significant an impact it can have, it really motivates them to be involved, and when they can see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel to look forward to.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And it's maybe a nice little segue into what you're doing. We're talking about book, George S. Clason, Richest Man in Babylon. But if we were to look at the realm of movies or using film titles, with what you do every day, how would you describe your life so far using film titles?
The Accountant, full stop.
Ben Affleck, right?
Yeah. No, my work colleagues will probably describe it as the holiday because I seem to have been on quite a few in the last year, having most recently come back from a honeymoon overseas.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I would probably like to think it's sometimes fast and furious with the way my both professional and personal life travels. But I'd like to probably aim more for that, a better description of the journey of what I'm chasing. Success is probably pursuit of happiness. And
Will Smith, good choice.
Yeah. And hopefully when I'm in my retirement down the track, I can look back and say, it's a wonderful life.
Oh, love that. A nice rounding off there, let me tell you. Fantastic. And I'd love to ask you, because it's come up in conversation a lot. A lot of our barrister clients, they keep working their whole life. And I don't know if there's studies that say it's good to keep working because it keeps you alive. What's your idea, or is it personal based on someone's situation, whether they keep working their whole life or not?
I think it's personal, and to some extent, I've come across several clients who are in high pressure jobs every day through their working life, and it's hard to just reach an age and then completely switch to retirement and not having all of that on their plate. And that's why often I think, and sometimes people struggle with that. And I think it's about, it varies from person to person. Some people can't wait for the day that they stop working, whereas others might need to continue doing that to keep them occupied and keep them mentally engaged outside of their usual holiday preferences. So I think it varies from person to person, and I found generally starting to transition into that phase rather than going cold turkey to that extent and just ending abruptly is the way that seems to work better for people.
No, it's well said, well put. And I'd love to know what sparked your interest in helping people and being their trusted advisor on this journey. Love to know, like, the origin story of Darren Chinnappa.
Well, I think it's from a personal sense, I guess. While my parents are necessarily doing it hard, I think it's one of those things that money has always been a significant aspect of life, and while they did very well to give me and my brother every opportunity to succeed, I think I've as I started in my area of finance and accounting, seeing the impact that being well set up financially has, and as I speak to clients, seeing everything that they're aspiring to do somehow links back to a financial means. And when they can't achieve what they want because of any struggles on that financial front, it can be quite frustrating and can really impact their life quite significantly. So I guess that is what drives me to hopefully take away that stress that can impact all aspects of life, so that again they've got that comfort, that they've got a plan, and they go out and be the best version of themselves in terms of everything else that's important.
Well, I like the fact that you're helping people self-actualize in their own life, which is fantastic. But obviously, you've had 15 years in the game, and you're obviously very self-actualized in your own professional standing, and you add so much value. So I'd like to know, what does it take to, I guess, be the top in your field and to keep performing at that level for your clients? Because, you know, you've only got so many hours in the day. You've only got so many, clients you can help. I'd love to know what your secrets to success in your field are there, Darren.
I think over a period of time, I realized that it's not all about the technical. While you probably start off on the technical side of things, and being technically sound is an assumed attribute after a period of time, I find that it's being well-rounded on all other aspects, because that helps you relate to people, and the job that I'm in and the field that I work in involves people, whether it's clients, staff, centers of influence, and you've got various stakeholders that you're dealing with, and it's being able to relate to them is important. And other than technical, we're being at a firm like Nexia, we've obviously got other aspects of practice management and everything else that's needed to run a successful business. And so I think it's that, rather than necessarily excelling in one area, it's important to be well-rounded to rise to the top, or be a significant person in the field.
Good points. Good points. And on your journey, this is usually a good fun question. What's a surprising skill that's helped you on the way in your professional or accounting journey that you acquire or you have?
I'd like to say humor, but others around me might not agree. So I do think it's a little bit of, humor does sometimes diffuse some situations, but I think it's more probably being approachable. And I think that's something that's been one of my strong suits and is important, being approachable either from the sense of my own team, or whether it's clients being comfortable with opening up, which is an important part where you're dependent on them opening up and speaking about what their concerns are and what they're trying to achieve. So I think that's probably the most surprising skill from my perspective. And then it's obviously the rest of it is actually then being reliable and saying and doing what you say you'll do, and following up on that trust that you build through approachability.
Fantastic. And obviously high value, high experience at Nexia. What you do is quite challenging, being a chartered accountant and advocate. Like, how do you unwind after a particularly tough day at work? What's Darren's secrets, especially as a new husband and partner?
Yeah, so being a new husband, I need to get home at a reasonable time. Otherwise, the wife won't be happy. But I think I like to completely switch off. So I'm not one that normally logs on from home, or so I'd rather go in early, get a early start to my work or the day, and then once I switch off and leave the office completely, not thinking about work from that perspective. Like even work emails, I like to not have pop-ups on my phone. I can log in go through the browser if I need to, but so that I'm completely present from that sense. But once I get home, I love my food. So there's usually a discussion about what we're having for dinner, followed by making dinner together, or usually me mostly standing around while my wife does all the heavy lifting, and then enjoying dinner over a TV show that we were currently watching at the time. And we've got our shows that we watch together, so we have to make sure we don't sneak in episodes on the side on that front. So we normally enjoy our shows together.
Fantastic. What's on the watch list at the moment?
Recently, we've just been watching Perfect Couple on Netflix.
Nicole Kidman.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so that's been quite entertaining. So that's been our show recently.
It is a good one. We're getting people joining from everywhere. Just a reminder, we're talking to Darren Chinnappa, leading partner and CA at Nexia Sydney. We're broadcasting live, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, X. And thank you for those watching either live or listening here on the podcast, Ledger Legends Live with Cullen Haynes. I would encourage you, we don't get to talk to this behemoth and powerhouse very often. Please put your comments in and I'll make sure I'm looking to see where they are and see if I can ask Darren in real time. But our next question, any passion projects you're working on at the moment that you're welcome to share with us there, Darren?
Well, as I touched upon, I think superannuation comes with constant change in terms of the government playing with that big pot of gold. And with that, the most recent headlines have been around Division 296, or what's more popularly known as that additional 15% tax on the higher super balances being $3 million and over. So in the super world, that's taken up the headlines a fair bit. And having a fair few clients in that space, it's been a heavy focus of mine and my fellow team here in the super and financial services teams at Nexia. A lot of that's bringing forward conversations that were already happening, and I do like the fact that it's forced people to think about their future from the perspective of most of them are already in that retirement space with that wealth accumulated, and it brings forward the discussions around estate planning, which is extremely important, particularly where in superannuation, when you've got balance going to children who aren't considered tax dependents, there can be quite a significant amount that's withheld in tax when super goes to those children on the death of the parents. So generally, when you've got a balance that large, you're more than comfortable in terms of living your own lifetime. So the focus comes to really, if you can provide any early inheritance or support so that, your children and grandchildren can enjoy the benefits of it while it's the most useful to them, while they've got school fees and buying houses, for instance. So I think that piece has been quite interesting, and it's brought a lot of clients to the table. So it's been an important part of what we've been doing outside the regular ongoing tax compliance and financial advice.
Very good, very good. And I know we've got the issues we're talking about, or what's happening in the mainstream media right now, obviously super and the changes going there. But if we can cast our mind into the future and what's coming, where do you see, accounting, AI and everything, or maybe overall in 10 years time? What's Darren's take on the whole thing?
Well, AI and tech has already had significant impact, and there's been a lot of change in the way we do things in a pretty short space of time, from the launch of the first rounds of ChatGPT to more recently, I'm loving Microsoft Copilot, and it's made my life of note-taking during meetings a lot better. And that's something that I think is just going to continue to grow, and quite excited by that, because I think it can replace some of the more mundane or repetitive or administrative tasks that we can sometimes get stuck in, and lets you and professionals focus on the more value-adding tasks, and spend more time speaking to clients and building relationships with them and helping them out. So I think it's a welcome change, and I'm excited to see what it does. But I certainly do think that the accounting profession will look very different, and the new cohort coming through the accounting profession will experience a very different early few years in accounting than I did when I started a long time ago now.
Makes sense. And we can be as honest, and you can be anonymous as well. You've been in your profession for a long time. You've seen a lot of things. What's the most unusual client request you've ever experienced or had?
Well, not so much a client request, but more I get questions all the time from clients when they're thinking about doing something with their super.
Yes.
And well, it's always better to get those questions before they do it than after. So some of the questions are about, can I get this in my super? Can I get that in my super? And while super you can invest in collectibles through self-managed super funds, there have been questions that have extended the term collectible beyond probably something that would benefit their retirement and might benefit them in present day, which is a big no-no in the super world. So luxury cars are one, particularly from car enthusiasts. When you do have a collectible in your self-managed super fund, it needs to be stored not in your private residence. It can't be used. And I know that I certainly doubt that that's going to be the case with the car enthusiast. So those questions about, can I use my super to buy an expensive car that I like? And yeah, I promise I won't use it. Those are the questions that I've come across, which I've often had to speak people out of doing, because I know it's fraught with danger.
Makes sense. I love it. And obviously, we're all built on the shoulders of giants, and we're very lucky to have different people in our lives that have helped us get to where we are. Obviously, you mentioned your parents earlier, gave you all the opportunities and chance to be successful. Is there anyone you'd like to call out, an influential mentor? Who is that person and why?
Yeah, there's been a number of, most of my career at Nexia, and so there's been a number of the bosses or partners that I've worked closely with or for across the years, and I've come to notice that I do tend to pick out those good traits from some partners that I look up to and indoctrinate it in myself. And so a couple of people that always pop to mind when I think about this is a couple of the existing partners at Nexia. One, Craig Wilford, who's a financial services partner, and then another, Russell Reed, who's a business advisory partner. I've worked with both of them for a number of years, and they've been great operators who I've looked up to and taken some of their what I think are good traits. Although I hope they're not listening to this podcast, because I don't want them to get too flattered by it. But yeah, I think the way, I think a lot of it is the way they interact and deal with people and pressure situations and always trying to achieve that positive outcome and going about it in a manner that's very composed, as well as having that very personable side to them, where again, I have a good relationship with them outside of work too. Have them both invited to my wedding in Bali too. So they're probably a couple of people that I've taken a lot of leaves out of their book.
Well, shout out to them, and I'm sure we're going to send the podcast link to them to inflate those egos. And obviously, the internet is forever, so I'm sure they appreciate it.
I'm sure they will, and they won't hesitate to remind me of what I've said.
Of course. I think life is short, so it's good to be able to call out those people who have helped us and made us who we are. What would you like? You can be as candid as you like, Darren. What would you like to see change in the realm of accounting, financial planning, finance? You tell me. You tell everyone tuning in.
So I think it's been one of those areas where there's a constant pendulum swing between with the regulatory red tape that goes in those areas. So we've gone from seeing, there's been the inquiry into the financial services sector. They've been in the Royal Commissions, and they've made it extremely red taped. And then once all of that comes in, and it really impacts the cost of delivery of services because you spend so much time, and that's where again I think AI is great and might help with that. But it more recently shifted to the point where they're now looking into making it more affordable for people because of all that red tape. Advice has become too expensive for people who need it the most. And so now they're looking at trying to, there's the quality of advice review that's currently in the works. And a lot of that's to try and take away some of that so that it can be accessible to a lot of people. And the other side of it, on the accounting side, having started from that side, the accountants used to be covered by an accountant's exemption, which allowed them to provide advice in certain areas relating to financial services. And that was removed. And with that, a lot of clients have long-term relationships with their accountants. They trust their opinions. They go to them for advice. But then accountants can be put in the difficult position where they can't advise based on those changes. And accordingly, there's also an area where they're looking at bringing that back to some extent where, for instance, someone who's specialized in superannuation but is an accountant and not financial advisor can still provide advice around certain superannuation strategies. So I think that would be something that would be a welcome change, and I hope to see it come into effect in the not too distant future.
Me too. And well said again there, Darren. And I'm sure we'll have lots of young professionals tuning into this, those starting their career in accounting, finance, or otherwise. What lessons would you impart that you would like to have been told back in the day?
So I can't understand like the value of practical experience and networking. And I think that's something that initially, so I started at Nexia, it started through a summer internship, and I quite liked it. It was across the festive period where during silly season where there's plenty happening. There's events like Melbourne Cup and Christmas parties, and it was great. And that was a great way to connect with people. And so I really enjoyed it as a teenager back then. And then that was sort of the way in and getting a little bit of a taste of what actually happens versus within a accounting practice versus, what you do at university. I wanted a bit more of that. And that's where, there was an opportunity to start in the new superannuation division, and I started there. And I think since then, the focus, it's just been a good opportunity to put that theory that you learn into actual play. And sometimes you learn things and I think the uni curriculum's changed a fair bit, but they were focused on things that, software does anyway, and you don't really need to, but that's what your focus is at university sometimes. And so it gave a better view of what's important and from a future career perspective. And I think the contacts you build, even if it's, someone that you've worked with for a few years and as a young professional, you can build relationships for life, and they might change their career over course, but I think they're valuable contacts, and those are things that you can't learn quickly enough. And that's where I think doing, whether it's a cadetship or it's just a short internship, I would grab that with 2 hands if I was a young professional, because it's it's a great way to start your career, and it's enjoyable too.
I love that. I think that's so critically important. I wish I got that feedback when I was back in high school and uni. I think that's so important. So yeah, well done. Well said there again there, Darren. But, we're coming to the end of the stream, and, this is a little bit of a reflective, introspective question. When all is said and done, someone's talking about you at your eulogy. How would you like to be remembered?
I'd like to have a big crowd at my eulogy, at my funeral, because I hope to have touched enough people's lives in a positive way, and I think with whether it's clients or colleagues, I would like, from a client perspective, I would like to have developed a personal relationship beyond the professional over the many years, and I think I would have wanted to have had some form of positive impact that they can look back on how I made their life better, and that's what I kind of want to be remembered for from their perspective. And then with colleagues, I hope that I was able to inspire or motivate them to progress their career however they see, or to follow the pathway that they wish, but hopefully helped play a positive role along that journey.
I'm sure you're already doing that, Darren. Very, very, cogent insights there. And I think that's a nice way to be remembered indeed. Well done, sir. But we've got to the end of the stream, and we're going to come with some bonus questions after. Where can people find you? Where's the best place to get in contact with you or your team?
Either on I've got my email, and I'm happy to share that around, but you can find me on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can call Nexia Sydney and ask for me through the switchboard, and you'll be put through to me. So there's plenty of ways to get to me. I generally like to, if I'm meeting someone for the first time, like to meet in person over coffee or a drink, and I think that's always a nicer way of connecting, rather than the virtual, where it can take away some of that particularly initial connection.
Definitely, you're a man after my own heart. You believe it's all about taking the online offline, and you're breaking that stereotype that an accountant or someone in the finance industry is just an introspective number bod. You're very engaging, and I love the fact that you make time for people. I think that's a real big point of difference.
Thanks, Colin, and you're doing a lot of good work yourself in the home loan space.
Oh, we do our best. Like, we're just a humble mortgage broking firm trying to add value to both chartered accountants and the legal fraternity. So, it's very exciting with obviously CA Home Loans, who's powering this program. So, it's one loan at a time. And for anyone watching, I guess, and they're thinking, the rates are on hold, I'm going to wait till rates go down. What my advice to anyone in anything in life is, don't wait till someone tells you to do something. And I'm sure you agree. You got to make the decision yourself and grab opportunity, because opportunity may not when people tell you, but when you feel like it's important. So when people ask me, should I get my pre-approval or do something now? I'm like, definitely, but do it if it feels good to you. Don't wait for the media to say, and now it's time to buy, or this is the job that you should do, or I recommend you should do that. Don't wait for that. I think people get led too easily by what other people tell them to do,
Yeah, I think it's a common saying in the financial services space is to not try to time the market. It's always about time in the market. So generally acting on it as right away leads to a better outcome in the long term.
What a way to finish it, my friend. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm looking forward to uploading this podcast, and I'll bring you back for a couple of bonus questions, my friend.
Thanks, Colin.
Good man. If you are a Ledger legend or know someone who is, please get in touch. We come out every Wednesday. And, this is our 7th episode of Ledger Legends, and our sister show, Law Live, has been on for the last 2 years. We're on episode 60. So it's an absolute pleasure to bring these episodes to you. Thank you for watching, and bye for now, everyone. Take care. Bringing you back, Darren, we've got a few questions we want to ask. How would you explain your role to a 6-year-old child in a simple, easy to understand way?
I think I would say that I'd liken it to a piggy bank, and adding coins to your piggy bank and protecting your piggy bank, because that's the way you afford, whether it's ice cream or a toy child. I think it's the same thing, but it's saving for retirement and protecting that for using towards, whether it's holidays or gifts to loved ones or just meeting your cost of living. That's how I was looking at it.
Fantastic. Very well said, my friend. If you've had any pets or you've got a pet, how would they have described you or describe you?
I don't have any pets myself, but my parents have a few dogs. And generally I see them once a year. So when I do, they're pretty excited to see me, more excited than most people. And I would like to say that they probably think I'm a decent patter. I generally expect them to be their way. So, but they probably don't even notice when I'm gone.
That's okay. I'm sure they think he's a reliable fellow, he's likable, and he can come and pat me. That's all good. As long as they're thinking those 3 things, I think they're okay. Now, going back,
I'll take that.
Yeah, come on. Now, I like to get a little bit introspective again with this one. Like, if you could give yourself advice at any age, go back in time. What age would you visit young Darren? And what specific advice would you give yourself? I'd love to know.
I think most people go through similar stages of life across from being a toddler all the way to their retirement and beyond. And I think I come to realize that each stage is actually, at the time, it might seem like it's forever, and what's important at that stage is no longer important to you. That lasts for a very short, finite number of years. So I'd probably say take it all in and live in the moment, because soon you can't go back to that moment, and you'll probably have new priorities on the horizon. But I certainly encourage, building wealth from an early age. I would also, that wealth is only for achieving what's important to you, and not to lose focus or touch with those non-financial aspects that.
Oh, I think he's dropped out, but I think we can all pick up what Darren was putting down there. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. You have a wonderful Wednesday, and make it count, everyone. Take care.